The cold wind of Cleveland cut across LeBron James's face as he walked through the downtown streets. Despite being the star of the Lakers, four-time NBA champion and billionaire, LeBron always returned to the Ohio region whenever he could. This discreet visit was to personally oversee new projects for his foundation. With a beanie pulled over his forehead and dark sunglasses, LeBron managed to maintain a certain level of anonymity in these early morning hours. His phone vibrated, constantly. Messages from his team, sponsors, and friends. But he kept it silenced, valuing these rare moments of reflection. Turning a corner near East 4th Street, LeBron spotted a small line of homeless people waiting for breakfast, distributed by volunteers. Normally, he would keep walking, not out of indifference, but because his presence would inevitably cause a commotion. However, something caught his attention. A tall man with graying hair and worn-out clothes was not in line to receive food, but was instead helping to distribute it. There was something familiar about his profile, the way he moved, the voice that occasionally rose to organize the distribution. LeBron stopped abruptly. "Coach Wilson?" The man turned slowly. His face, more wrinkled and thinner than LeBron remembered, lit up with immediate, though hesitant, recognition. "LeBron? My God, is it really you?" Dwayne Wilson had been LeBron's first serious basketball coach when he was just 11 years old in the Akron community program. He was not just a coach, but a mentor who believed in the young boy's potential when his family was facing its most difficult times. "In the flesh, Coach," LeBron replied, removing his sunglasses and stepping closer. "What? What are you doing here?" Coach Wilson smiled faintly. "Helping those in need. It's what I've always done." As they spoke briefly, LeBron absorbed the impact of his former mentor's appearance. The man who had been strong and energetic, always well-dressed, with his inseparable whistle hanging around his neck, now looked frail, wearing multiple layers of worn-out clothing to shield himself from the cold. "We're behind on breakfast," one of the volunteers interrupted. "I need to get back to work," Wilson explained. "It was great seeing you, kid. Or should I say, king?" he added with a slight smile. "Wait," LeBron gently held his arm. "We need to talk. Please. There's a cafe nearby. After you're done." Wilson hesitated. His pride was visible, even beneath the weight of clearly difficult circumstances. Finally, he nodded. 1 hour. At the diner on the corner. As he watched his former mentor return to work, LeBron stood still, struggling against the emotion rising in his throat. How had the man who had been so crucial in his development, who had organized his first tournament trips, who had paid out of his own pocket for LeBron's first quality basketball shoes, ended up like this? The disparity between their current realities felt almost obscene. LeBron felt his phone vibrate again. The world was waiting for him. Commitments, meetings, interviews, but none of that mattered now. He had a more important appointment. The diner was simple, almost empty at that hour of the morning. LeBron chose a table in the back where they could have privacy. He ordered coffee for two and waited, drumming his fingers on the table while mentally reviewing the questions he needed to ask. When Wilson entered, LeBron immediately noticed his careful steps, as if each one was calculated to minimize pain. "The knees aren't the same anymore," the coach explained, catching LeBron's look. "A consequence of demonstrating plays for hundreds of teenagers over the course of decades." After a few minutes of conversation about LeBron's career and memories of early tournaments, silence settled between them. The inevitable question hung in the air. "What happened, Coach?" LeBron finally asked. "Last I heard, you were running that big program in Todintuiti, Columbus," sending dozens of kids to universities with scholarships. Wilson took a long sip of coffee before responding. Linda, my wife, she had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis 4 years ago. It progressed quickly. His voice remained steady, but his eyes betrayed deep pain. The insurance covered the basics, but you know how it is with degenerative diseases. The costs skyrocket. LeBron nodded silently. Linda Wilson had been almost a second mother to many of the kids in the program, always, with homemade snacks and words of encouragement. We sold the house, then the car. I took a leave from the program. Never went back. The position was filled. Wilson continued. After she passed away, the medical debts had already consumed everything. Depression hit me like a train. You know what it's like to lose your footing. LeBron felt his chest tighten. Why didn't you ask for help? Any one of your former players would have... Begged for a handout? Wilson interrupted, a flash of pride crossing his face. I spent my life teaching you all to stand on your own, to overcome obstacles. What example would I be setting if I begged for charity? The waitress brought the breakfast that LeBron had discreetly ordered, a feast compared to what Wilson had probably been eating. And now? LeBron asked softly. I survive. Wilson shrugged. In the winter, I go to shelters. I take odd jobs when they come up. I still help coach some kids in community centers occasionally. It's not what I planned, but I still have something to offer. As they ate, LeBron observed his former mentor. Even in adversity, Wilson ate with the same methodical discipline he had always demanded from his players. He cut his food into precise pieces, chewed carefully, and regularly wiped his mouth with a napkin. Remember what you always said before tough games? LeBron suddenly asked. Wilson smiled, the first genuinely joyful expression since they had met. Hard times reveal who we really are. They're not obstacles, they're opportunities to show our true strength. You really believed that, LeBron stated, not as a question. I still do, Wilson responded without hesitation. I just didn't expect to have to prove it at 60 years old. When they said goodbye, with a promise to meet again in 2 days, LeBron walked through the streets of Cleveland, his mind racing. The disparity between his private jet waiting at the airport and Wilson's current reality was more than he could bear. For the UTU, first time in years, he canceled all his commitments for the day. He had an urgent new project. Over the next 2 days, LeBron operated with the same intensity he displayed in the NBA Finals. Between calls and virtual meetings, he contacted former teammates who had been coached by Wilson at different times. Some now in the NBA, others entrepreneurs, teachers, doctors, all united by a debt of gratitude to the same man. I am organizing a video conference this evening, explained Dwayne Wade, his close friend and former teammate. It is about my first coach. The situation is complicated. The guy who took you to your first amateur athletic union tournament? Wade asked. I thought he was running some state program now. He was. Things changed, LeBron responded briefly, and I need your help. That evening, the screen of his laptop split into 12 squares, showing faces from different generations, all impacted by the work of Dwayne Wilson. I found Coach Wilson distributing food to people experiencing homelessness, LeBron began bluntly. He was not helping as a volunteer for an organization. He was helping as someone who understands the situation intimately. The shock and disbelief were unanimous. LeBron explained the full situation. His wife's illness, the medical debts, the depression, everything that had precipitated the downfall of a man who had dedicated his life to uplifting others. Why did he not reach out to anyone? Asked Marcus Johnson, now a bank executive in Detroit. Any one of us would have helped. Pride, principles, the same things he taught us, LeBron replied. And that is why we need to approach this the right way. The discussion that followed was intense and productive. The plan that emerged was not simple charity, something Wilson would certainly refuse, but a genuine opportunity that would honor his legacy while addressing his current situation. The LeBron James Foundation is opening a new youth training and development center in Akron, LeBron explained, showing slides of a recently renovated building. We need a program director with extensive experience in the holistic development of young athletes. Someone who understands that basketball is just a tool to build character and opportunities. He will figure out what we are doing, warned Anthony Parker, a former National Basketball Association player who had been coached by Wilson in the 1990s. He has always been perceptive. We are counting on that, LeBron responded. This is not a facade. It is a real position with real responsibility. We would not be offering it if he were not exactly the right person for the job. The group spent hours refining every detail. The competitive but not suspicious salary package, the benefits that included comprehensive health insurance, the functional apartment within the center itself that would be presented as a logistical necessity for the role. We still have a problem, observed Jason Williams, now a pediatrician in Cincinnati. Even if we agree that he is qualified, and he definitely is, his current state of health could be concerning. How long has he gone without proper medical care? That is why the process will be gradual, LeBron explained. The center does not officially open for 2 months. We have time to handle these issues discreetly, as part of the preparation for the role. When they ended the video conference, each participant had taken on specific responsibilities. The plan was in motion. The next morning, LeBron met Wilson again at the same diner. This time, his former mentor seemed slightly less weary, perhaps just from the anticipation of the meeting. I need to show you something, LeBron said after a brief conversation. A new project I am developing in Akron. I would really like your professional opinion. Wilson nodded, unsuspecting that he was about to face a crossroads that could completely redefine his future. The building was located in a revitalizing neighborhood of Akron, not far from where young LeBron had grown up. From the outside, it appeared modest but functional. Inside, it revealed itself as a state-of-the-art facility. 2 professional basketball courts, classrooms equipped with technology, a science laboratory, a media studio, a library, and a cafeteria. Wilson walked slowly through the space, occasionally touching equipment, looking at architectural plans, absorbing every detail with the experienced eyes of an educator. This is extraordinary, he finally commented. An extension of the I Promise School? A compliment, LeBron explained. The school takes care of formal education. This center will focus on athletic development, leadership, and life skills. Extracurricular, but structured. Wilson nodded approvingly as he examined the main court. Suddenly, he stopped in front of a wall where framed photos displayed various moments from his own coaching career, including an iconic one of a young LeBron receiving his first Most Valuable Player trophy at a regional tournament. Before he could comment, the main doors opened, and about 15 people entered. Wilson's former players from different eras, all now successful adults in their respective careers. "What is this?" Wilson asked, genuinely confused. "A board meeting," LeBron answered. "The advisory board of the LeBron James Development Center, to be exact. And we are here to interview the leading candidate for the position of executive director." Wilson looked around, still not fully comprehending. "You, coach," LeBron explained gently. "We are here to offer you the position of executive director of the center." There is no one more qualified, no one who understands the mission better. Wilson's expression quickly changed from surprise to suspicion, and, finally, to an emotional understanding that threatened to break his carefully maintained composure. "I do not need charity, LeBron," he said quietly but firmly. "And we are not offering charity," Anthony Parker replied, stepping forward. "We are offering the opportunity to do what you have always done, transform lives, but with the resources you have always deserved to have. Think of the hundreds of kids who will walk through these doors in the coming years," added Marcus Johnson. "Kids who need exactly what you gave us, someone who sees their potential when no one else can." Wilson looked long at each face present, then at the space that could be his new professional domain. LeBron could see the internal conflict in his eyes, pride battling necessity, skepticism against hope. "With one condition," Wilson finally said, "all of you need to be involved in some way. As mentors, occasional speakers, advisors. I do not want to be the outdated old man trying to connect alone with a generation I barely understand." "It is already in the contract, Coach," LeBron smiled, extending a folder with the documents. 6 months later, the LeBron James Development Center buzzed with activity on a Thursday afternoon. On the main court, Dwayne Wilson, now physically transformed, healthy, well-dressed, and energetic once again, led an intense training session with 20 teenagers. "Defense! Communication! I don't want to hear the sound of sneakers. I want to hear your voices," Wilson commanded, with that familiar authority that had shaped generations of young athletes. LeBron watched discreetly from the entrance, having arrived early for his monthly mentoring session. The kids were so focused that they barely noticed his presence, something rare and precious for someone constantly in the spotlight. When practice ended, Wilson gathered the group for his final remarks and then dismissed them to the locker rooms. Spotting LeBron, he smiled and walked toward him. "You got here early," he remarked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I wanted to see the master in action," LeBron replied. In Wilson's office, spacious yet functional, decorated with photos of old and new teams, they discussed the progress of the center. His program already served 100 young people, with impressive academic and athletic results. "Jamal is having problems," Wilson mentioned, referring to a particularly talented teenager. "Complicated family situation. His mother lost her job, and they are facing eviction." LeBron nodded, understanding immediately. "Send the details to my team. The foundation can step in." Wilson hesitated for a moment, still uncomfortable asking for help even after several months. "I'm not asking for charity for them." "It's not charity," LeBron smiled. "It's an investment." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. A tall, skinny teenager with thick-framed glasses timidly appeared. "Mr. Wilson? Oh, sorry, I didn't know," he stammered upon recognizing LeBron. "It's okay, Jamal. This is LeBron James," the boy whispered in awe. "Oh my God, it's really you." LeBron stood up and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you. Coach was just telling me about your progress." After a brief conversation, during which LeBron discreetly invited Jamal to a special training session the next day, the boy left visibly excited, his home troubles momentarily forgotten. "You didn't have to do that," Wilson commented once they were alone. "I learned from the best," LeBron replied. "You did the same for me when I was just a scared kid from Akron with a single mother struggling to survive." That night, watching the game from the bench, while recovering from a minor injury, LeBron reflected on how a simple morning walk had triggered an extraordinary series of events. In the stands, Wilson watched the game with a group of young people from the center. all proudly wearing their customized uniforms. The sight reminded LeBron that his true legacy would not be measured solely in championships or records, but in the ability to give back, to lift others as he himself had been lifted in crucial moments. The circle had closed, not as an ATE end, but as part of a continuum that would extend far beyond his own career. The true impact of a life, after all, lies in the lives it transforms,